Welcome to the Film Illiterates podcast, your home for uninformed, unfiltered, ill-advised movie talk. As always, I'm Joe Campbell, and joining me today, as always, are Nathan Stone.
What's up?
And Alex Patton.
Yo, how's it going?
Today, it was Alex's turn to pick a movie for us all to review. Alex, what did you pick?
So, you know me, I'm like the anime guy here.
Probably the most colorful guy of all of us. So
Absolutely, yeah. So, in looking through the wide range of movies that we could watch, I decided upon the very stark and flat and quiet Corpus Christi, which is a Polish film.
A live-action Polish film.
Yeah, not
live
animated.
action. There's real people doing real things.
And there's no I don't know what animes have. Giant robots? Is that about all animes have?
That's one thing that they have, sure. I mean, there is a farming anime that's actually really good.
My experience with animes are they're all about giant robots, kids on a farm, or like magic beings.
Magic beans. What kind of animes are you watching?
No magic beings.
Beans. I thought you said beans like Jack and the Beanstalk.
What?
I'm like, I have seen that one. That's a weird one.
Anyway, your whack opinion on anime aside, yeah, this is something that's been sat in my watch list for a while, and I thought about doing an anime movie, but I decided to change it up, and this is one that kind of stuck out to me, so went with this Corpus Christi.
Kind of glad I did because I was saving Akira for later for us to watch. So thank you for not stealing my thunder.
All right, yeah.
Well, before we get into the hard-hitting 2019 Polish drama Corpus Christi, we will first kick things off with what we've watched recently on our own. So, Alex, considering this is your night, I will let you lead things off.
All right, so recently I watched Hellbound, Hellraiser 2.
Hell yeah.
It's terrible.
It's. I mean, I wouldn't say... No, carry on.
What do you want me to say?
Well, let's hear your thoughts. Because you have to have more than just that.
It's just gore. Like,
yeah.
Have you seen the first Hellraiser?
Ages ago. What's funny too is I remember like when I was a teenager looking up like all these like super like disgusting and disturbing gory movies and like, oh yeah, it'd be so cool to watch those. And Hellraiser was always one of the ones that mentioned. And I finally watched it and I was like, this is boring, dude. And so, as you can imagine, Hellraiser 2 is not much better, at least from what I remember Hellraiser being. Its most interesting scenes are all the gory ones, of course, as you can more than likely imagine. It does have a lot. I mean, the practical effects are, I guess, the highlight of it. If you want to see incredibly good practical effects like blood and gore and stuff like that, it's got it in spades for sure. But aside from that, there's not much else.
So several years ago, I did a marathon of the entire Hellraiser series.
You poor soul. I pray for you.
The time that I watched them, there were tons of movies, and I think I only liked maybe about 2 or 3 of them, maybe. So people talk about Hellraiser 1 and 2 as being the 2 great ones, and one of the later entries was directed by Scott Derrickson of The Exorcism of Emily Rose and Doctor Strange fame. I believe it was his first movie, and that one was actually pretty good. But yeah, Hellraiser 1 and 2, I recognize they're known as horror classics, but I'm not 100% with you, Alex, because I didn't hate them.
All right,
I'm not a Hellraiser fan either.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see why like they might be considered classics just because of the effects are that good. But I think with a lot of like other horror classics, the story is really where it fails, and like what it's remembered for is the blood and gore. I don't know. it just wasn't that great, and it might be kind of fun to watch with your friends to like get grossed out, but aside from that, there's not really a whole lot else to it, I don't believe.
I mean, I think that was just the intention of the guys who made it in the beginning was let's see how far we can push the gore limit. And they did.
Yeah, they did. They did for sure. Yeah.
Whenever I look
Yeah.
at Pinhead, I'm always worried about what would happen if he like tripped and his head hit the ground.
That he probably wouldn't feel a thing.
All right.
Anyway, you
Well,
got anything else, Alex?
yeah, I got a couple others. So, I did watch some 80s classic anime movies. I watched MD Geist and MD Geist 2 Death Force. These movies are badass, dude. Like, it's so cool. The story is not that great, but the animation is pretty decent, pretty cool. The character design is pretty rad, especially like MD Geist himself. But essentially, what like the basis of the plot is that MD Geist, a most dangerous soldier, genetically engineered to function as a killing machine, but every one of the MDS units went homicidally insane. As a result, Geist was placed in suspended animation in a stasis pod orbiting the planet Jera until it crashed several years later, awakening him and bringing him into another war on the planet. And then the MD Geist 2 is kind of just more stuff. But it's a pretty rad set of movies. Like I said, story isn't really that crazy. It's just him going around killing, and you're kind of like left wondering through both movies if he's really a good guy or not. And he kind of technically isn't, but it doesn't really matter. It's just badass, dude. I watched the English dub, and I really kind of want to go back and watch the original Japanese dub with the subtitles. But the English dub is pretty rad. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot else to say about it. Like, the animation is fine. It's 80s anime, but it's not like really that great or groundbreaking or in any way. It's fine. It does its job. It's just kind of like the character design is pretty rad.
I'm looking at the poster. Is he wearing a football helmet?
It does look like one, but no, that is just like a suit of armor.
Okay.
And yeah, that helmet is pretty incredible.
I don't know why, but I'm getting Appleseed vibes just from like looking at the poster and the era and the synopsis and everything. I'm sure it's nothing like Appleseed, but that's just kind of the vibe I'm getting from it.
You know, I actually haven't watched Appleseed. I downloaded it recently, so I'm going to check it out soon. Because after watching these two, I was like, I really need to watch more 80s anime and check all that stuff out.
Oh man, we should do a video on Appleseed. I fucking love Appleseed.
You know, Joe, the fact that you know Appleseed is kind of what impresses me. So
I have a very erratic knowledge of anime.
yeah, you do.
I love Appleseed. I grew up with Star Blazers, which is I think that was 70s or 80s. It was a TV show. I watched most of it.
79.
79. So it was
it
right
really?
on the cuff. Yeah, just right on the cuff.
Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah. My knowledge of anime is kind of all over the place.
I might actually pick this some other time for an episode, a double feature of these, because they're only 45 minutes each.
Oh,
It's either this or we can check out Fist of the North Star, which is another classic.
Yes,
80s
please. I've been wanting to watch
tough
that
guy
one.
anime.
you've been talking about that for a while. So yeah, no, I'd say that one for sure.
Okay, we'll watch that sometime. Like I said, check out MD Guys, because it's like I said, both 1 and 2 are 45 minutes each, so you'll get done with the entire series in the amount of time it takes you for a normal movie. And personally, I think it's worth it. It is kind of like Fist of the North Star, just big, huge, hulking dude just tearing it up, and that's really what's cool about it. But yeah, that's what I've watched.
Cool.
Awesome. So, this past week, I've been watching a lot of movies. One that I watched was a movie by the name of Boss from 1974.
Jesus, dude.
So I'm gonna have to find a way to censor that.
Well, yeah. From now on, I'm just going to refer to it as Boss. It's directed by Jack Arnold, 1974. So I've been kind of getting on a wave of blaxploitation westerns, I guess, from the 70s and the 80s, because the Criterion Channel is hosting a whole bunch of them. So this was one as part of a series from Fred Williamson, who, I mean, I know he has kind of like this 80s action kind of persona to him. I mainly know him from Dusk Till Dawn. This movie is this movie is kind of fascinating because it has the same plot as Blazing Saddles, and it came out the same year as Blazing Saddles.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's like 1974. There's another movie that came out during this time. Yeah.
So Fred Williamson plays a bounty hunter who kind of walks into this little racist town out in the middle of I don't know where out in the West, and it takes over as their sheriff. And so the whole movie is kind of like the first half of it is basically just him kind of coming to terms with the town and enacting all these rules and just really not taking shit from anyone. And then the second half is him facing off against a local gangster who's kind of holding the town under his thumb. Guys, I've got to say, this movie's pretty great.
Really?
If you're looking for just like a really charismatic 1980s a Western with an attitude kind of thing. I mean, Fred Williamson owns this movie. He is just oozing charisma throughout this whole thing. It's full of so many memorable one-liners. Very entertaining movie. I think you can find it streaming just under the title Boss. But if you look it up, I would highly recommend it. This sounds like something that's up your alley. I highly recommend checking it out.
Now, I know this part will get censored out. Do you think because of the times that movie might just be changed to Boss because of cancel culture at this point?
Well, I mean, for one thing, you can't really say the title.
True, yeah. So
I wouldn't necessarily call it cancel culture. It's just
no, yeah. I mean,
you can't really go around
censorship
saying,
culture.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the whole history around the title, because this is part of a trilogy. It's kind of an unofficial trilogy of movies. This is the third one that he did, and the other two also had the N word in the title. And it's interesting, just kind of like reading interviews with him. I mean, I know it's extremely provocative, controversial, and that kind of stuff. But I'm just kind of shocked that a trilogy of movies with these titles came out, were released, and now it's just like, I'm a little bit bummed that they're kind of doomed to fall into obscurity. And the second movie, I could only find it on like a really crummy transfer that was uploaded to some DVD way back when, and you can't like watch the movie in high quality. And I think just part of that's just like no one wants to touch these movies for restoration now, because how the heck do you market that?
Exactly. Yeah, I think at some point they will, because I know like right now we're just in a very like heated time talking about these movies.
Oh, yeah.
But I think at some point this will all kind of be just like eased out again, and it'll just come to terms like, hey, let's just talk about these movies as they are at face value.
Yeah. I mean, like you can have a whole conversation around, whether they're actually harmful or if they're empowering. I'm not the titles, but the movies themselves. I just kind of don't want them just to kind of fall to the wayside. Boss did get a Blu-ray release. I know, not a great transfer, but I think the Blu-ray comes with like an interview. I didn't actually watch the Blu-ray. I watched the streaming version, but this is something I'll probably end up checking out again in the future. And now I just kind of really want to watch Blazing Saddles again.
I mean, Blazing Saddles is just a good movie in general. So just how about watch that? Because
yeah. I mean, Boss is a fine movie. I really enjoyed it. It does. Fred Williamson kind of falls to the wayside for the second half of the movie, and it loses a lot of steam when he's not on screen. But then it picks up again, has a really kick-ass finale. So I mean, pound for pound, Blazing Saddles is a much better movie. But if you check it out, it's pretty easy to find online right now.
Or as you mentioned, the Criterion Channel, it's advertising it. So
well, the Criterion Channel doesn't have Boss. It has the first movie in the series.
Oh, gotcha.
The Legend of Black Charlie.
Okay, well, if you want to see the first one, but this one you recommend is better.
Yeah. This one is easily my favorite. I like the other two in the series, but this one was easily my favorite. Also, quickly, I watched Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, 2016, directed by Zack Snyder.
Oh, cool.
That's a nice little gem in itself.
I watched it because I'm gonna watch the Snyder Cut coming up pretty soon.
You too? So am I.
So is everybody.
I'll probably watch it right after this podcast because it's airing today on March 18th.
On the day that it waited date us when we recorded
this. Yeah, I was going to say, we don't know when this is coming out. Good job.
Yeah, well, I like dating our stuff, so now you know.
But anyway, hot take, not a good movie.
Wow, really?
It's kind of frustrating because there's a good movie in there somewhere. I think Batman is probably the most interesting thing in that. I think the movie just needs to have a lot of stuff cut, changed. I think they should have made Man of Steel 2 before making it, because Superman in this movie doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because everyone talks about how he's a hero that everyone looks up to and is a godlike figure, but we haven't seen that version of Superman, because all we've seen is the tortured, angsty Superman from Man of Steel leading right into this one, and everyone's afraid of him all the time. And then Lex Luthor shouldn't be in the movie.
Okay, Joe, calm down. We know.
There's so much that's frustrating with this movie. Cut out Lex Luthor, cut out Wonder Woman.
Yes, I understand. We all know that DC was basically arm twisting Zack Snyder to put all this stuff in because they were trying to speed up, the Justice League movie. We get that.
Zack Snyder, though, his sensibilities frustrated me too. Zack Snyder's sensibilities in these movies is that, he pulls like philosophical quotes and ideas that have been around for thousands of years and acts like they're, wow, this is the best thing ever. We're going to have Lex Luthor say this thing right here as if it's a big, new, cool concept. And then all the characters have to be tortured, angst torn. I get that he doesn't want to have the hero Superman that we all know and love, but you kind of need it for the story that you've written him into, because Batman needs to, okay, I'm just, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. This is one thing I will say about Dawn of Justice is that I think from just years from now, it will be still an interesting case study to look at and just how not to do a superhero movie. Because you're right, there's so much crammed into there. And Snyder's still riding on his Watchmen train, and he's trying to kind of cut coat his Snyder DC verse in that light. And you probably years from now will look back on it and say, okay, here's where it was right and here's where it was wrong. And here's what he was trying to do, and this is what he should have done. But, it is what it is.
Anyway, not a terrible movie. Frustratingly, not great. I do not recommend Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, but everyone's already seen it anyway.
I honestly, in my opinion, I think people should see it just to see what you kind of want to avoid. And that's just cramming everything into one movie the wrong way.
Finally, I'm going to mention briefly She from 1935, directed by Lansing C. Holden and Irving Pitchell.
She who?
She, just she.
I know, she who.
A group of explorers search for the legendary Flame of Life, a mysterious force that bestows immortality in vibrant color. Thank you, IMDb. Actually, it wasn't in vibrant color. Okay, so the deal with She was this was directed by I believe one of the guys responsible for The Most Dangerous Game. It was which I talked about on the last episode, I think, and it was produced by Marion C. Cooper of King Kong and The Most Dangerous Game fame. So this was kind of the team that did King Kong. They were going to do another big fantasy adventure film. It's supposed to be the next kind of King Kong. This is what, 4 years after King Kong, I think. So this is based on a book by H. Rider Haggard, who is the guy who did the Alan Quatermain books like King Solomon's Mines. From my understanding, they were making this to be in color. They were designing the sets, the costumes and everything to shoot in color. And at the last minute, the studio said, nope, you got to shoot it in black and white, cut budget. So they shot it in black and white, released it in black and white. Years later, Ray Harryhausen, who did all the stop motion effects for the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, It Came from Beneath the Sea, Jason and the Argonauts, all those classics of stop motion history, he re-released this, I think on Blu-ray or DVD. Anyway, at some point down the line, he colorized it, knowing that they intended to shoot it in color, just didn't get the chance to. So he released a colorized version of the movie down the line. Ray Harryhausen, fun fact, also is just generally a fan of colorizing black and white movies, which he did for quite a few of his own movies, which is very controversial. I'm not personally the biggest fan, but this is a kind of a special case where you can kind of understand where he was coming from.
Oh, that's cool.
So I watched it in black and white, just because that was the way it was originally released. And I mean, I really dug this movie. It's not as good as King Kong, but it gave me my old-timey adventure fix. It's got some of the big, the massive sets. They reuse the doors from King Kong, the giant gate from King Kong. They reuse that. They've got, it's got this kind of sense of wonder and adventure going into, a land that not many people know about, and they run into magical powers and all this kind of stuff. It is a little bit dated because it's got some of this, the tribe in another nation, and then the leader of the tribe is clearly a white guy trying to play a minority, which is not great. But it's it comes with the territory from the 1930s, unfortunately. But the movie in general is just, it's a very fun kind of freewheeling adventure. It turns into a love triangle of sorts and just kind of focuses on that for the second half of the movie. And I still didn't mind somehow, even though that stuff usually bothers me. So yeah, look it up. If you like King Kong, you're not going to get as big of a spectacle as that, but you'll get some pretty cool effects set pieces. You'll get some matte paintings. You'll get a little bit of kind of pre-Indiana Jones adventure-esque kind of stuff. So that's a recommendation for She. Anyway, that's what I got. Nate.
Okay. I haven't had a chance to watch a whole lot, but there is one movie that's been on my radar for a long, long time. And just recently with the Oscars just being announced, this movie got nominated for Best Director, which kind of made me excited. And that is Another Round. Four friends, all high school teachers, test a theory that they will improve their lives by maintaining a constant level of alcohol in their blood. When they find themselves in a new spurt of energy and enjoying life again, they decide to test this theory even further, despite how far and how deep they go into the habit. So this movie is directed by Thomas Vinterberg, and it stars the actor Mads Mikkelsen, Thomas Bo Larsen, and Magnus Millang, all Danish actors. But I think everyone will probably know Mads Mikkelsen from Rogue One. He plays the father. But he's also in a lot of other movies. James Bond's Casino Royale, he plays the main villain. But yeah, I was impressed with this movie, honestly. It's interesting because it's obviously it's a midlife crisis comedy or dramedy, depending on how you look at it, where these four guys decide, you know what, hey, there's a theory out there that if you can maintain your blood alcohol content above 0.5, you'll enjoy life a lot more. And it's kind of funny how you watch this movie and they're testing this theory out, but they actually start getting much more active and much more enjoying. It's like they have this new spurt of energy. It's only when they decide to test the theory even further and they get into binge drinking, you kind of start seeing the kind of the sad side effects of what this can do. But it's just surprisingly done very well as far as a movie, as far as a story. And Mads Mikkelsen, he's freaking good in this. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know if have you guys seen this movie at all, heard about it, or know about the ending?
I think I've seen a bit of trailers here and there, but so I'm vaguely familiar with at least the way it looks, but I hadn't really paid attention to the story much at all.
Yeah, I do like the camera work and how it just captures in their state of mind. It's a lot of it's very handheld. So when they start getting really deep into it, you start feeling like their instability. But it's that last scene, kind of watching these four friends and what they've gone through, the kind of the tragedies, the things they've learned about themselves, what they've been able to overcome. That last scene just kind of comes out of nowhere. And what Mads Mikkelsen does in it is just, it kind of is surprising that he can actually dance like that. I'm actually kind of glad this movie got nominated for Best Director. I haven't seen The Hunt, which is another movie that Thomas Vinterberg did with Mads Mikkelsen, but they say that's supposed to be a good one too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I heard that one's good as well.
Yeah. So, but I recommend you guys checking this out. This is, it's kind of like it has humor in it. It's a little dry, but aside from that, it's just these guys' performances, like, them kind of like tethering on that line of like, oh, we're tipsy, but we're also happy. And then watching them get like, plastered is kind of sad. It just a lot of mixed emotions you get in this movie.
Yeah.
But it does address an interesting issue, which, I don't think a lot of people talk about. So I'm kind of glad this movie was bold enough to talk about it, and in such a weird, enjoyable way, because at the very end, it's not saying like what they did was bad. It's not saying what they did was wrong. It's kind of like something that they had to go through to see where they were in their lives and to resolve their problems. So it's kind of a fascinating work just on that.
Yeah, I'd never heard about this, but Mads Mikkelsen is a hell of an actor that I think has kind of gotten in general Hollywood. People kind of just picture him in one role, and that's the kind of Doctor Strange, villain-esque kind of role.
Oh, that's another movie show, Hannibal. He's also Hannibal.
Right.
Lecter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to see him, showcasing it in more diverse roles. But unfortunately, like I said, I hadn't heard about this one, but now I'm curious to watch it.
Yeah, no, this director, I don't know what his sensibilities are as a director, but he just brings the best out of Mads. Like, I can't think of another director or seen anything else he's been in where I'm like, this guy just shines. Like, you watch him at the very end and you're like, dude, where do you learn to dance like that? And you actually realize, oh, no, he is a trained dancer. So
interesting thing about the director, I was just reading on Letterboxd. He co-founded the Dogma 95 movement with Lars von Trier.
Somewhere down the road, I'm going to have you guys watch some Lars von Trier movies.
And my interest just dropped.
No, the safe ones, not Antichrist, Joe.
Aw.
Oh, Lars
I
von
know.
Trier.
I kind of shoot him down.
All right, Lars von Trier-thon
and
it is.
Yes, I'm down.
I
Let's
know
do it.
you are, you
let's do it.
freak.
Anyway, the last thing I'll talk about is I kind of started watching The Witcher again. Geralt of Rivera, a solitary monster hunter, struggles to find his place in a world where people often prove more wicked than the beasts he's assigned to kill. So this is a show produced by Lauren Schmidt, stars Henry Cavill, also known as Superman in the Snyderverse. But surprisingly, this kind of came like right after Game of Thrones had ended its, train. And it was a nice little kind of fantasy drama, gritty drama that, just kind of took the helm, and it's doing very well so far. I had watched it before. This is just me revisiting it again because me and my friends were kind of into the cosplay community, and I've been looking into just maybe recreating the Geralt look myself. But I keep forgetting there's stuff about the show that works. There's stuff that doesn't work. I know like it's really trying to compete with the Game of Thrones audience, and it's trying to cater to that as well. But it does some good things on its own. And I don't know. I think it's a show where, Henry Cavill's acting is the best because, I think he just owns the Geralt, acting persona. It works. He's not trying too hard. He's not forcing himself. He just naturally does it. Where I feel like when he's Superman, he puts a little too much more effort into that. So, yeah, if anyone's not watched the show, I recommend it.
You know what else Henry Cavill was in was Hellraiser 8 Hellworld.
Oh, wow.
Where
I'm so glad we kind of came back into full circle
where
with that.
Hellraiser becomes a video game, I think. I don't remember.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was a matter of time. It was a matter of time before that happened. So, but yeah, good show. If you want your daily dose of fantasy, gore, nudity, cursing, grittiness, it will give it to you.
Whenever I renew my Netflix, I will probably intend to watch it and then not actually end up watching it.
Yeah, exactly. As what you're supposed to do with subscriptions, you just pay that money and never see it.
Yep.
I pay for subscriptions just to browse the whatever they have online and then watch something else. Watch another episode of The Office.
Exactly.
All right. Well, with that, let's move on to our main topic: Corpus Christi.
A co, nie macie gdzie spać w tej stolarni?
W jakiej stolarni?
A skąd jesteś?
Księdzem jestem.
To ja przedstawię.
Zaprowadzę do proboszcza, ucieszysz się.
Goło Wojciech.
Ksiądz Tomasz.
Myślę, kto mógłby mnie zastąpić.
No ale co, msze i wszystko?
I nie tylko.
Widziałem tablicę ze zdjęciami.
Bóg tak chciał. Bóg chciał zabić 7 osób?
Słyszałem, że ksiądz wypytuje o tego kierowcę. Nawet rozumiem ciekawość, tylko śledztwo jest już zamknięte.
Mam prawo rozmawiać z wiernymi o czym tylko chcę.
Corpus Christi is a 2019 movie directed by Jan Komasa. Daniel experiences a spiritual transformation in a detention center. Although his criminal record prevents him from applying to the seminary, he has no intention of giving up his dream and decides to minister a small-town parish. This was Alex's pick for us to watch tonight. So, Alex, why don't you kick us off? Had you seen Corpus Christi before, and what were your thoughts?
So I had not seen it at all. I don't remember exactly where I found the movie. I think maybe just seeing another friend recommend it on Letterboxd or something like that. And the poster kind of just stuck out to me. That's really kind of the only thing that hooked me in, was just seeing they liked it and the poster looked cool. A little bit of synopsis was like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll add it to my watch list. So I just threw it on there and it sat for a long time. And so for the podcast, since I didn't really want to pick another anime thing and wanted to branch out a little bit,
It's a show that Alex does have range. He'll go from colorful, vibrant anime with girls with big boobs and mechas destroying each other to Polish juvie wanting to be priests.
Yeah, man. I got, there's different things that I'm into. Sure. Yeah.
If you want to see an example of Alex's range, go watch our video on Kess.
Oh, yeah. That was
or Only God Forgives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That was a fun one.
That was a fun one.
So I really liked the movie, honestly. I love the way it was shot. I think Nate and I were talking a little bit about it earlier, and it's the way it's shot. It looks like a David Fincher movie.
Yeah, pretty much like a David Fincher movie if it was drowning underwater.
Yeah,
Because there's a very interesting murky look to just the look of this film. But there's a lot of sensibilities, a lot of composition that harkens to a lot of just Fincher's work.
yeah. And I think if you go back and check out our podcast where we talk about our favorite directors, I believe I did mention Fincher.
He definitely is one of your favorite for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Just in the way that he shoots movies, I think always look great. And so the fact that this one looks like a Fincher movie is, just automatically a bonus for me.
Mhm.
But I like the story a lot too. It is entirely character focused and just trying to watching the transformation of Daniel as he's trying to go from, his place in juvie to trying to be or faking it to be a priest.
Mhm.
I'm not a huge fan of or I find it a little bit hard to watch movies where the main character's trying to fake it, just because I always try to relate to whatever's happening and think about it oh, how would I feel in that place? And
Mhm.
I can never do something that insane, so I always
Mhm.
felt weird about watching movies where a character's trying to fake it entirely in a completely new role. But besides that little tangent, I liked it. I feel like it was a really great story, even if the ending was a little bit up in the air.
Mhm.
But what did you guys think?
I mean, honestly, I'll definitely have a lot to say about the ending when we get to that. But I was kind of impressed with how this movie approached the subject material that it did. One of my notes that I put down was, the genre of this film, this could have worked as a screwball comedy. The whole premise of it being fish out of water, a kid who's just trying to fake it till he makes it, it could have easily gone in that direction. The fact that the director went for a very stark drama and kind of like an intense drama with a little bit of comedy weaved into it, I think does something interesting to what you were just talking about, making it relatable, because there's a lot of things that could have been, there's tension that exists in this movie. And,
yeah.
and if it was a comedy, the tension would be laughable, passable, but the way it's shot in this, it's less laughable and more relatable. You put yourself in Daniel's position when he's feeling the tension, when he's finding himself in a kind of a situation where he was like, wow, I bit off more than I could chew. And it's less of like, haha, you screwed yourself over, and more like, shit, I hope you don't screw yourself over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think that's something interesting that the director decided to go with this, because the way it's written, it could have easily gone in that direction, but there's something that's achieved with it done this way, and a lot of the themes that it's going for. So I don't know, this movie kind of falls in those categories of movies that kind of wrestle with faith and religion in a modern world, and looking at religion and just faith in a degree that maybe people are uncomfortable to go to. One of the movies I kind of wrote down that it kind of reminded me of was Silence, Martin Scorsese's Silence. And even just some of the stuff like There Will Be Blood, where it looks at the showmanship of religion and just, gets down to the core of what is faith and what is confession. So it goes in that territory, and I like those films. I like that there's a place for those kinds of films, and this movie's like one of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this was one that I knew basically nothing about. I didn't even know that it was a Polish movie. I remember seeing the poster somewhere and thinking that guy looks kind of like Gilbert Gottfried.
Okay. I mean,
okay, sure.
The actor himself does not look like Gilbert Gottfried, but on that poster, it made me think of Gilbert Gottfried.
Fair, yeah.
I mean, it kind of almost looks like we're getting into a musical with the way looks like he's singing or belting, but that's not what he's doing.
I really had no idea what to expect, but being a Catholic, I'm always kind of drawn to movies about Catholicism and about faith that aren't necessarily made by Catholics or from a Catholic perspective. I always find it kind of fascinating. So that kind of caught my, the poster caught my eye, and then reading a little bit more about it, I thought, hey, this looks like something I would be interested in. Okay, I'm a little bit mixed on this movie. I didn't hate it, but I'm not quite sure if I understand it or if I get what it's trying to do. it does a lot of things that I do like. I like that it's a character study and that it's a drama. I like that it's not, a lot of these kind of. I could see a lot of people kind of stashing this way as like, oh, for an art house film, or a way as like, oh, slow moving drama, not my thing. But it isn't really. It's about this kid who kind of he's in a lot of trouble. He's gotten into drugs, sex, violence, all that kind of stuff, all the vices of the Catholic Church, right?
And we pretty much get all that within the first 5 minutes of this movie. Like, we get handed a lot of it.
Right, but there's also you also get a flavor of he has some sort of faith background.
Mhm.
Now, I was a little bit unclear as to exactly how serious or how pious he was, because we see him at the beginning in I guess it's in juvie, and he's helping out at the mass service that they have in there. And then he leaves and immediately goes and has sex with some random woman, does a whole bunch of drugs, slams a whole bunch of drinks. And so I wasn't quite sure who this guy was. And then he gets to the town and he happens to have a priest's outfit on him, which, or, like with the Roman collar, which did I miss where he got that from?
I don't think it's ever really established. I think it's just something he just had on his person. He borrowed it with I guess he was at a student's dorm when he first gets out. He's just like bunking there. I guess that's where he shows it off, is like, hey, check me out, I'm a priest.
Yeah, because the IMDb synopsis makes it sound like he was training to become a seminarian, which is something I never got the sense of, that he ever actually did that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like. I mean, like you said, he was helping out with the masses and whatnot, but there was a line with the priests talking about how he would never be accepted into the seminary because he was a felon.
Okay.
So it does set up a little bit of how he wanted to, how committed to that he is. We don't really know, but at least it seemed like he was interested in doing it.
So it sounds like a guy who has an interest in possibly going on the straight and narrow, but he's got too many vices that he's stuck in, basically.
Yeah.
And so then he wanders into this small town where he's supposed to get work because he's out on
parole.
Parole, yeah. And he walks into this little church and just kind of jokingly tells some girl there that, like, oh yeah, I'm a priest. But then she buys it, and then the people around him buy it, and he just kind of plays into it. And before he knows it, he's in too deep, and he's met with the actual priest of the town. And next thing you know, he's taking over priestly duties for the next few days. As the movie goes on, you kind of get the sense that he accidentally ended up in this position, but he legitimately enjoys it, and he feels like he's helping people, and he feels like he's actually doing something worthwhile with his life. Is kind of the sense I got, which made, I mean, we'll get into the ending in a little bit and spoilers, but I don't like I was with this and I was interested in where they were going with it. And I thought, well, okay, he's doing all this from the church's perspective. He's doing all these sacrilegious things. He's hearing confessions when they're not valid confessions. And he's saying, practicing sacraments, and, he's lying to the people. So I was kind of looking forward to, all right, there's going to be some sort of karma where his lies are going to catch up with him. He's going to learn something. But where the movie ends up, I'm really not sure what to think about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of like one of the things that I was drawn to this movie is it doesn't give you everything that he's thinking of or what conclusions he comes to in this journey that he's going through. You do see a lot of his character shine through, a lot of how he perceives religion and faith, and even just this idea of grace and forgiveness and how that plays into not only just the theology of Catholicism, but just living your life as a good human being, which I see he's definitely struggling with. And I think that's something I'll get into as far as one of the themes for, is there's this thing with the appearance of faith and the demonstration of grace. And you see it at constant like war with each other in this town, because there's something that this town is kind of going through that he helps them get over. Whether or not they decide to or not is kind of something that is left up in the air. But I think is a good clue that they do get over this conflict or this thing that they're trying to resolve. And because he was there and he placed himself in there at that time, they needed someone who isn't just going to act the role of piety, but live this role of grace, is something that they just needed. And whether or not he learned something from it, it's something he gave to the town that they needed at the time.
Ja tu nie przyszedłem klepać formułek. Mam nadzieję, że wy też, nie? Jak coś, to Bóg też jest na zewnątrz, nie? Bo po co my tu jesteśmy? No bo to jest tak. Przychodzimy do kościoła. Patrzymy na niego. Jezu, jak ja mam cię naśladować? Ty jesteś taki czysty. Ja taki brudny z tym wszystkim, co do ciebie przynoszę. Jak ja mam działać w twoim imieniu? Jak ja sam ze sobą nie daję rady? To się pomódl. No tak po prostu, no.
One thing I did like was how it showed the hypocrisy of the town,
Mhm.
which is one. I guess of the town in general too, because we get to the mayor as well. But these people in the kind of this sleepy little town are just kind of you get the idea that they're going about their faith in a very almost rote way by repetition. Just all right, we
Very
show up to church every
mechanical.
day, we do all this, which comes into the kid hears a priest in the juvenile detention center talk about how it just becomes repetition. We don't want it to become repetition. We want it to become. I want you to be here because you actually want to be here. You actually want to get something out of mass.
Mhm.
And the kid passes that on to the people of the parish because he heard it from a priest, so he passes it on to them, and it's something that they needed to hear. But then you also see the hypocrisy of them in an event where there was, before the kid arrived, there was a car accident which killed a whole bunch of teenagers, and there was another guy at the wheel of another car who was involved, and everyone in the parish blames the man who was driving for causing the accident, and there's a lot of enmity between them and his widow.
There's a lot of hate and there's a lot of just anger and hurt that
Yes.
exists in this town, and they're all trying to cover it up with this, piety, or this like, oh, we're living good Catholic lives. But just deep down, they just want someone to like help them experience or just embrace that pain they're feeling, because it doesn't feel like they had a proper chance to grieve.
And I like that aspect to it. I think we need good stories about people seemingly living out their lives in faith, and in reality not living according to Jesus's teachings, which was really cool. And that's what kind of drives the kid, Daniel, when he learns about all this, and he learns that, well, we don't really know what happened in the accident. We don't know who is to blame, but all the people had decided to pick this one guy, and emotionally torturing his widow and writing all these hate mail and that kind of stuff. And I like that. I just don't know what it all means in the wider context of the movie, because I mean, that whole little plot, I guess, wraps up somewhat satisfyingly, but you don't even get the idea that, did the congregation change in any way? Did they not change in any way? You don't really get a feeling for that. And that's kind of with the movie in general, is that I don't feel like things were really wrapped up, and maybe that's the point. Is that the point? If it is the point, that didn't come across to me personally.
Okay.
But
yeah.
So I like all these setups. I like all these themes that they're exploring. I'm not sure if it stuck the landing.
So, Joe, I see what you're saying about that. It feels like there's a lot of things that are not resolved, but I think there's a couple of scenes that kind of give keys that whatever Daniel did in this town, whatever, with the facade that he was putting on, it does something for everybody. You mentioned everyone is holding on to this hate, holding on to this anger, holding on to this pain, and he at least gives them a chance to confront it. Not necessarily resolve it, but confront it. There's a beautiful scene. I think this is actually a scene I'll talk about later, but they built a little shrine where the pictures of the kids are there. And every day they go there to pray a rosary. But then one day he just tells them, you know what? I'm going to take this tactic that I learned in juvie school where you have to get rid of your aggression. And he just tells them to just inhale and exhale and then just scream as much as you can, let all of it out. And it's such a enigmatic scene, but it's like you look at the people's faces and they've been wanting to do this for so long. Just scream at it, whether it's God, whether it's the man who killed them, whether it's just how things fell to place. But he gives them a chance to confront that pain. It may not ever go away, but he gives them a chance to deal with it. And I think with his experience in juvie school, with his criminal record, he's learned to find a way to, like, you can't just bury your pain. You have to confront it. You have to basically face it head on. You have to wrestle with it. And there's something about, I think, the faith journey that they all go through that helps them get to that point. I think there's something he did with that demonstration that helps them move forward with their lives. Because before then, they would have just been sitting on this for years and years and years, with the vicar just basically going on a mundane routine as a priest, hiding the fact that he's an alcoholic and not ever getting resolved.
Tak, jeszcze raz mocno. Sięgamy rękoma. Wdech, wydech. Sięgnijmy tam, gdzie żadna modlitwa nie sięga, gdzie nie sięga żadna myśl. Wdech, wydech. Głęboko wdech i wyrzućmy je za siebie. I wdech, wdech. Wdech mocny i wydech.
Now we're going to get into spoilers and talk about the ending and kind of how this whole journey of Daniel as a priest leads up, where it leads up to. So, Joe, when you're talking about how you're not sure if his teachings landed among the parishgoers, there is the scene at the very end where the widow, she walks into mass and she's standing at the back. Before her are the parish of people that have hated her for so long. And we see, I don't remember her name.
Miss Lydia.
Lydia, thank you. We see her sitting at the front row, and she looks back and notices her and kind of stares at her for a little bit before she finally just nods to her as if, you're accepted. They've learned, or at least she has, to forgive. And one of the things that Daniel was talking about in the movie was forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It's not necessarily moving on, but it's, and I feel like that's something that kind of landed among, if not the rest of the parish, at least Lydia. And she kind of showed that, like I said, in that end scene where she finally accepts the widow among the rest of the parish.
Yeah, I think that is it comes down to is, like, maybe people will not be able to let go of what has happened, but they have to learn to forgive and love again. And I think, if anything, just letting them kind of deal with the pain as they've been trying to bury all these years, or is it years or months? I can't remember how long it was after the accident happened, but you can still feel like it's still really raw with them. It is
still
really
fresh with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are a couple other points where, specifically where they're leading Daniel, and a few more of the people are leading the man's ashes up to the church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're still not wanting to progress with them because they've been against this for the longest time.
Well, the thing is, to further go along with that, the idea that several, at least a few of the parish members have, accepted and forgiven the widow. They fall in line with the procession. There's at least one of the men that goes along, and then another one of the women that comes with them. So yeah, I do feel like Daniel's teachings and everything that he said has landed well, at least among maybe a small majority, but it has landed, and it's not just completely blown off. So it wasn't all for naught.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps, Joe, with explaining what the lesson of this is, but I kind of feel like that's what it came to is, at some point he helped them to just not forget, but at least learn to forgive and let it go.
Okay, so I think my issue then would be then that I kind of feel like that was maybe undercut a little bit by Daniel's position, which might have been kind of one of the most conflicting things about me for this movie, is that I get that he's not a priest. He's just some punk kid with these issues. So then when we see him doing stuff like helping the people out and hearing their confessions and that kind of stuff, it's nice and all that we see that, okay, he is helping the town. He is also, though, doing something that is consequential, something that is absolute wrong. Like the fact that he's playing along with this is problematic. So I was expecting not necessarily like a moment of karma, but a moment of learning for him, because throughout the movie, he is learning about himself and learning about helping people and realizing how much he actually enjoys doing this. Like he went into this for kind of inconsequential reasons, but he's having unselfish motivations as the movie goes on and on. I think it's the point where he sleeps with the girl.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, at that moment, I kind of thought, oh, I'm not sure where this is going all of a sudden, because she thinks that he's a priest. At this point, I guess she kind of knows that he isn't a priest, but the fact that he's helping all these people and then he's kind of leading her down this way. And what does that say about him? And is he learning anything or not? Like, because I felt like that he was going through it, kind of an arc of his own. But then that leads into the unmasking scene at the end, where the other priest from the detention center comes in and says, "We got to get you out of here." And the guy wants to keep it all hush-hush because, of course, he doesn't want a scandal to break that this kid had been at the church all the time. And, at the very end, the kid just basically reveals himself, literally. He takes his Roman collar off and his shirt off and walks out of the church, publicly so everyone can see. And I think that was the point where I was very conflicted as to what I should be feeling here, because on the one hand, he is revealing everything he's done to the parish. After he does that, like, what are they thinking? Like, oh, this little kid, like maybe he was wrong. I don't know. We don't really delve into that.
I think you're missing the point of that disrobing scene. This is what I got from it, at least. Let's look at the movie. It's called Corpus Christi, Body of Christ. At that moment, he just strips himself away. He says, I am not putting on a facade anymore. I am not trying to, mask my piety. I'm giving you myself, who I am. I am a broken individual. Look at me. Look at my tats. I'm a juvie. I am who I am, and I can't change that. I will have vices that will never go away. I will still wrestle with them, but there's this fire in me to always try to be better. And he was not only just, honest enough to be that, he was brave enough to show that to everybody. Whereas everyone else has been so ashamed to admit, I wrote these awful letters to the widow, telling her she should die. I have basically tried to hide the fact that this priest gets himself drunk and wasted and not, show up on mass on time, and try and cover this up. Even the daughter is angry at her mom for not, like, we should have mourned, we should have grieved for this a long time ago, and you just keep sitting on this. And it's like, no one's been able to be honest with themselves. Everyone's just kept an appearance of a piety. Whereas this kid, Daniel, he just wanted people to accept him for, I'm a broken individual, but I still have this desire to do better. I'm going to fall and I'll keep falling. And it almost kind of reminds me, Joe, of when we reviewed Silence by Martin Scorsese, with the guy who keeps falling and keeps wanting to confess. He's going to probably keep doing this again and again, where he's going to backtrack on his faith, stamp on the wood of the cross, and betray people that he's loved, people he's helped. But he's going to keep confessing and asking for forgiveness, because as corrupted or even just as broken as a person he is, there is this will, this desire to be better than what he is. And I think that's where Daniel's at. He wants to be better. He just knows, I have stuff I'm wrestling with constantly. And I think that's where the end scene comes into play, which is why I like that scene so much when it came. I hear you cringing. I
like the sentiment, and I think Silence is an excellent example. What if with Silence, like, it'd be like watching Silence, and it's like if Kichichiro comes up, confesses, then turns around and beats a guy to death. The end.
Granted,
no, I don't get the sense that this kid's actually trying. Is the thing. So like we see this kid indulging in all these vices early on, learns a lot throughout the rest of the movie, and then he bangs a church girl, leaves the church, and beats a guy to death, and like
he doesn't die.
He doesn't die. He just gets trauma.
I don't know.
You're also forgetting the part where he does coke and drinks a ton with one of his old juvie mates.
Yeah, I mean, I never got the sense that he was actively struggling with any of these vices. Like the scene with the girl, for instance. That would have been nice if there had been a moment where he kind of just like hesitated at least, but no, he just kind of dives right in. And so I don't I like the idea of broken heroes. I like the idea of heroes that are struggling and trying to make themselves better. This guy, I didn't get the sense that he ever was actually trying to be better. I get that he likes the taste of goodness that he's had, but he thinks, I'm not going to go back to that. No, thank you.
But you see, maybe that's also something where I should play in. I don't think the director is very devoutly religious. I don't know if he's actually taking this from a religious perspective or being reverent with it. I think if anything, he's looking for that stark contrast of, extremes, having a kid, yes, going through this journey, but then he's completely doing these 180 things. I think that's really just more for an artistic statement. And you're right, Joe. Don't take it as literally as like, oh, he's trying, but he keeps falling. It's like, no, I think the director just wanted to show that just to show those kinds of, shock value extremes. And really that's what it's kind of more intended at. But that's what I got from it. Whereas like, he's trying, but he's going to keep falling and doing these things. And maybe that's the lesson to take from it. Just don't take it as literal as that.
So there is a scene, the scene on the when Daniel's visiting, or he's seeing all like the young people on the boat and he's hanging out with them. And they're asking him about like temptation. And he says, if you're going to do something, you might as well go for it, go all in. So I can't explain away the scene with the girl. I don't really have, maybe if I watch it again, I'll get more of an understanding. So I can't really explain that part, but at least for his friend, I can kind of see where or why he did that. It's the separation between his old life in juvie and with his old friends and whatnot, and then his new life here. And so as soon as his friend comes up, he's kind of drawn back into his old life of drinking and doing drugs and whatnot. But I feel like the scene on the boat where he's talking about, if you're going to do something, you have to go all in. I do believe, he is at least trying to, do his best and follow the rules. And he does say, the rules are there for a reason or something to that effect. So I do believe he's at least trying to learn. He's not perfect, as I think there's another scene where he kind of talks about that. So he still has his vices. He's not letting him become those vices. Like, he doesn't let them define him.
Exactly. I think that's something I actually wanted to hint at with that. There's a theme I saw in this, and I was going to get to this at some point, but I think it's a good segue. He doesn't want to subject himself to seeing himself as a prisoner. Now, there's a theme going on in this movie where he's a prisoner of society. He is seen as a juvie. He can't get in the seminary. He's stuck. He's stuck where he's at. And even like his friend said, what am I going to do? Be a sawmill worker and just get my, child a block of wood? Is that all I'm good for? Is that my potential?
Yeah.
Whereas like, Daniel proved, no, I'm not letting my past, I'm not letting my criminal record define who I am. Even if I have to lie and do these things just to hide, I'm willing to see myself beyond this. And I think there's a lesson in that where he's like, I refuse to be a prisoner. I refuse to be a prisoner of my own doing, a prisoner of my own mind, or what society labels on me. And that's something he's also proving to the town is don't let yourselves be prisoners to your own doing or what you feel like you have to do. Everyone has a chance to change and turn the life around. It's just how much are you going to let that hold you back?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good ideas in there. Me personally, they didn't work so well. I could see them working. They work for you guys better than they work for me. I can see a lot of people getting more out of this. I think it's one I'm really gonna have to chew on, honestly, more than anything else. Because I remember, I just finished this movie a couple of hours ago, and as soon as it finished, I was like, I don't know what I thought about that movie. Like, I really had no thoughts, so these are just kind of my thoughts, just based on the past couple of hours, and I'm sure over the next couple of days they'll evolve somewhat. But as of right now, I'm mixed. I didn't dislike the movie. I do think the movie does a lot of great things. It's a very captivating movie. I have never been so stressed out by a mass in a movie before than that first mass he says.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm saying, like, I'm glad the way this movie was shot the way it was, because it could have gone 180 and done a screwball comedy of this, and it would have completely missed on that opportunity to capture that tension.
I probably
And
would have never watched it if it was a screwball comedy. That does not sound. It sounds like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Sure, I'm never gonna watch that.
will say is, I want to know where him and his friend got those lighters that look like flintlock pistols.
Oh yeah, those are cool, man.
I want to set.
Those
I
are
want to
rad.
set.
Should we talk about movie moments? What was the moment that was stood out to you kind of most out of the film? And Nate, we'll start with you here.
I think I've already said it. I think the movie moment that kind of stood out for me was him leading the mourners in the screaming at the shrine. I think for some reason that just kind of like is a great summation of everything the movie was trying to say, which is feel your pain, embrace your pain, wrestle with it. I think also another favorite movie moment was the very end when, you think, okay, everyone's resolved their conflicts. And then we're back in the juvie hall where he's literally in a 2-minute fist fight to the death with this inmate. And he wins, but he walks away bloodied and scarred. And I'm like, for some reason, that scene stood out for me as well, because I think that's just Daniel in the nutshell. He's going to fight his way through life always, whether it's no matter where town he's in, what job he's in, or what juvie detention center he's in, he's going to keep fighting and he is not going to go down. And I don't know. I think the way that scene was shot was a huge stark contrast from how the rest of the movie was shot. Everything was locked cameras, steady level shots. This camera's all over the place. And it just was very energetic. And it left me on a very weirded note, but I thoroughly liked that scene.
Yeah, the last like image of him walking out of that hall was just it's haunting, man.
And especially we're in the shadows, and then as soon as we get out, everything's just blurred and light. And you're like,
Yeah.
It was kind of just a little sickening to watch. So I like how uncomfortable that made me.
Yeah, that was a great scene. Yeah. Joe, what about you?
When the kid gets his testicles slammed in the drawer.
Another great handheld camera scene.
No,
Oh.
so this is the opening scene of the movie where I guess is the workshop in the juvie
Mhm.
Yep,
that-
the workshop.
that Daniel's working on, and they're sawing on wood.
Mhm.
And the guy watching them walks into his office for a second, and a bunch of the kids in there grab one kid and just hold him over a drawer and shove his balls in a drawer and
Mhm.
like slam it shut to torture this kid.
I mean, Joe, let's face it. They were just trying to help him get his wood right.
Oh my no.
So okay. I had a really interesting experience watching this movie, that scene. So I was like focused on reading the subtitles, and so I was trying to figure out who was saying it, and then all of a sudden my eyes wandered up. I'm like, oh no, it's happening in the background. It's out of focus in the background. Oh gosh, oh no.
Oh yeah.
And so I had to rewind to get the kind of the context of where everyone was in this scene again without just focusing on the subtitles. And it was just like I felt that, man. Like that's one of the more painful watching movie experiences scenes I've had in a while.
Yeah, and it just
that was
opens
bad.
up on that. It just opens on that.
The opening scene of the movie.
Yeah. It's like, well, now we're rolling.
I was like, oh, this is what we're in for. Okay. Ouch.
Yeah. It's interesting too. The movie never gets like that violent until the very end where it caps off.
Oh, yeah.
It is interesting. Yeah, the movie starts that violent and ends that violent, but the rest of it is pretty tamed, except for the sex scene.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then there's the scene where Daniel headbutts one of the kids. I thought that was great.
Oh yeah.
Just boom. I loved that scene. It was so great. So one of my favorite moments of the movie was Daniel's conversation with the mayor in the car. The mayor was content with having the old priest there. Everything was, he kept the status quo, and he didn't try to change anything. It was just he was there doing his thing, and he's trying to talk to Daniel and trying to get him to do stuff and be this sort of way, and Daniel's just not having it. He's already on his trajectory of shaking everything up, and the mayor's telling him, well, I have the power here, and Daniel's saying, well, it's my parish, quote unquote my parish, I can say to them whatever I want. And it was just, I loved that. I like that scene because it just kind of shows you the resolve that Daniel had for really just doing what he wanted and not being held down by anyone. You know, the mayor's kind of threatening him with whatever, and Daniel's just saying, you know, I'm going to do it the way that I want to do it. I will speak to them how I want to speak to them. I thought that was great.
Yeah, and I kind of also like the scene that comes after that when they said, now the priest will bless this new wing of the factory. And he says, all right, everyone, get down on your knees in the mud. And you have all these guys in their suits and they're like, we're getting all messed up. And he's like, suck it, bitches.
Yeah, and he's talking, he's preaching about greed the entire time too, which is great. Yeah, and then he's just like, oh yeah, and bless this new wing of the sawmill.
Yeah, no, it's a good power play scene. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Frank Sinatra, he did it my way.
Yeah.
Listen to more classics, Alex.
You ever listen to Chet Baker?
Yeah.
No.
Have you ever listened to Chet Baker?
I've not listened to Chet Baker.
Oh, don't tell me to listen to classics.
Touche. All right. So will that do you have anything more to say on that?
No, I thought it was a great movie, and that's kind of my closing thoughts on it. It's an incredible character drama, and the acting, the way it's shot is really fantastic.
Yeah, if anything, I'll just kind of leave with like, you know, there's a lot of things about faith and grace and forgiveness I got from this movie, but it's definitely not one of those overtly religious movies that someone should go in, you know, blindly. Like, you know, don't think this is going to be a very interesting examination of faith. It is very gritty and raunchy at times, and people should be prepared for that. It's not going to be something that's easy for most religious viewers to watch, but I did get quite a bit out of this, and it's still a lot of stuff, as you mentioned, Joe. You kind of are left chewing on in your mind, seeing, do you agree? Do you not agree? And I kind of like those films that push me in that direction. I kind of find myself looking more at that. I just think this movie was just shot and executed very well with what it was trying to do. So kudos to the guy.
Like I said, I'm going to be kind of chewing on this for a while. I don't know where I'm going to land on it. When I finish it, immediately after finishing it, I logged it as 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. Less than an hour later, I dropped down to 3 stars, but I might, you know, as far as I'm concerned at this point, it could go up or down based on if I rewatch it or how it kind of grows in my mind going forwards. I think it does a lot of commendable things that I think were very interesting, especially coming from a faith perspective, which I don't think that the audience for this movie is a church-going audience. I think this might resonate a lot more with a lot of people who don't necessarily have that background, because that might also be kind of like I kind of had that in the back of my head the whole time. That might have been messing with things too. I would recommend it. I would say people should check it out and see for themselves, because I think it's one of those movies where anybody can get something different out of it. It didn't necessarily gel with me though, but I mean, it made a good Lenten viewing.
Mm-hmm.
We're
there we go.
Here in the middle of Lent when we're recording this.
Hopefully we'll have a Daniel, or was his name that he was going by, Father Thomas.
Tomas
coming in and, you know, drenching himself with holy water.
No, he'll get the vestments wet.
Oh yeah, get the vestments wet and they'll rot. How dare you?
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll do for this episode of the Film Illiterates podcast. Next episode is my turn to pick the movie.
Ooh, what are we going to watch?
This is my sleepover, and I get to pick the movie.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I already see where we're going now. Shit.
We are going to watch from 1953. A priest who comes under suspicion for murder cannot clear his name without breaking the seal of the confessional. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, I confess.
We're watching a Hitchcock movie. Great.
Hitchcock movie.
When you said sleepover, I was kind of thinking of something else, but
oh yes. No, this is kind of keep the priest theme going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I just ordered this one on Blu-ray and it just arrived today. And I was going to watch it anyway. And after watching Corpus Christi, I'm like, I really want to watch I Confess now. So that's the next movie we'll be reviewing.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than Night of the Hunter. which,
What?
It's
Shut your whore mouth.
I'm just saying, I'd rather watch someone trying to, pretend to be a priest as opposed to a guy who just wants to kill some kids for
Oh
money.
my gosh, Night of the Hunter. How dare you slander Night of the Hunter?
Hey, fight me, man. Fight me. Well, you want to go at this? Well, we'll do this right now.
You can find us on filmilliterates.com. Alex, where can people find you?
You can find me on Rate Your Music, Letterboxd, and My Anime List, all under Half Scrim, HALFSCRIM. And you can also find me on Twitter at Alex D. Patton.
Nate?
You can't really find me anywhere. But, if you do want to, you can find me here at Film Illiterates. You can also find me on Instagram, and you can also find me at Letterboxd. But I have not touched Letterboxd in a while, so I've got some catching up to do. I just got some movies I need to watch, so it's, and report them.
Watch all the movies.
All the movies.
And you can find me on Twitter at Film Illiterates, although you won't find me there. Well, I guess it won't matter because this will probably come out after Lent, but I'm not on there a whole lot during Lent right now. I'm trying to stay off the social medias a little bit more. And you can also find me on Letterboxd at film_illiterate. And of course, all of our videos are on youtube.com/filmilliterates and filmilliterates.com. Until next time, keep watching movies and keep easy.